Hi everyone, I'm Rob Shapiro from Fitchburg State University, and today we're going to be talking about the BACB's 5th edition task list item G10, Teach Simple and Conditional Discriminations. So first it's important to talk about what is stimulus discrimination. So in stimulus discrimination, one stimulus, referred to as the SD, or discriminative stimulus, signals that reinforcement for a given response is available, and the absence of that stimulus, referred to as the S delta, signals that reinforcement for that response is not available. This results in that response occurring more in the presence of the SD than in its absence. And both simple discrimination and conditional discrimination are forms of stimulus discrimination. So teasing those two apart for a second, in simple discrimination, responding is under the control of a single antecedent condition, the SD. This results in that response occurring more in the presence of the SD than in its absence. There are two key elements to teaching simple discrimination. We need to provide reinforcement for responding that occurs in the presence of the SD. We also need to withhold reinforcement for responding that occurs in the absence of the SD. If we think about this on a very basic level and sort of think about some of the early animal research, and if we think about let's say that we've got a pigeon that's in a Skinner box. Okay, the pigeon's in the box, and there is a light in the box, and there's also a disc in the box. Okay, that the pigeon can peck on the disc, and when the light is on, if the pigeon pecks on the disc, it gets food. If the light is off, the pigeon pecks on the disc, no food comes out. Okay? The light being on is the SD. Okay? It's the stimulus that's paired with reinforcement. When the light is on, I peck the disc, I get food. The light being off is the S delta. When the light is off, I peck on the disc, I don't get any food. Okay? So we get this discrimination training that occurs, okay? So the pigeon comes to respond when the light is on and not respond when the light is off, because when the light is on, pecking has resulted in food. When the light is off, pecking has not resulted in food. Some factors impacting the teaching of simple discrimination. Number one, how salient the discriminative stimulus is. So in our pigeon example, if the brighter the light is, the clearer it is, whether it's on or whether it's off, could impact that teaching of that light on as a discriminative stimulus. How consistently reinforcement is provided for responses in the presence of the SD, and how consistently reinforcement is withheld for responses in its absence. Okay, so especially for early learning, if food comes out at every peck when the light is on and never comes out when the light is off, that's going to enhance early learning. However, if we had a situation where when the light is on, 75% of the time pecks got food and 25% it didn't, and when the light is off, 25% of the time pecks still got food. There still will end up being differential responding, but it's not going to be as robust. It's not going to be as differentiated, and that learning is not going to occur as quickly. Also, the degree to which the SD differs from other stimuli. So the more the SD differs from other stimuli, the easier it is for discrimination to be established. And this may, of course, need to be refined to form more sophisticated or subtle discriminations. Okay, so if we take this out of the realm of pigeons for a second, and let's say that we're looking for someone to be able to tact or label a truck, right? And so in order to do that, what we want to do is when a truck is shown and the learner says truck, reinforcement is provided. When something that's not a truck is shown and the learner says truck, we want to withhold reinforcement, right? So that makes sense on a very basic level. But now, what are those things that we're holding up that we're showing that aren't trucks okay? If the things that we're holding up that aren't trucks are pictures of people, pictures of animals, of buildings, of trees, all of those things are pretty different from trucks, and are probably going to make it easier for that discrimination to be established. Whereas something like a car is an awful lot closer to a truck than those other things are. So in the early going, if a truck is our SD and a car is our distractor stimulus, that's going to make it more difficult for that discrimination to be established. That being said, we're going to want to refine that discrimination for that learner down the road, right? We're going to want them to be able to differentiate between a car and a truck. We just might not want to start there. And in fact, sometimes very early on when we're looking to do this, we might have, for a truck, the other quote unquote picture might not be a picture at all. It might be just something blank, right? That's sort of the ultimate in being different, that there's basically nothing there at all. So really, the more that it differs, the easier it is for that discrimination to be established. So moving away from simple discrimination and talking about conditional discrimination, what's that? Well, in conditional discrimination, reinforcement is conditional on the context of other discriminative stimuli, so it's under contextual control. And this results in one response being reinforced in one given context, but a different response being reinforced in a different context. Sometimes this can be referred to as matching to sample, because oftentimes it does look that way. And we can think of it as more of a four-term contingency. There's an observing response, a conditional sample, the discriminative events, and then some comparison match. So if we go back to thinking about our pigeon in the Skinner box, right? And we had a situation where light on, Peck gets reinforcement, light off, Peck does not get reinforcement. Now let's make it a little bit more complex. Now we've got a situation where we've got two discs that can be pecked, one on the left and one on the right. Okay, and now we've got a situation where the light goes on, but what the light going on basically serves as is it serves as an alert to the pigeon that it's time to observe. So getting that observing response of the pigeon that they are looking at the light, okay? And now one of two things happens. The light turns green or the light turns red. And now let's say when the light turns green, a peck on the left disc gets food and a peck on the right disc does not. But if the light turns red, then a peck on the right disc gets food and a peck on the left disc does not, okay? Now we're getting a conditional discrimination, okay? Because we've got, depending on what's going on after that that attending stimulus, depending on what the discriminative stimulus is that comes next, determines which response is going to result in reinforcement. The requirements for a conditional discrimination is that the learner has to be able to discriminate between sample stimuli, to determine which one is it. They also have to be able to discriminate between comparison stimuli, so that they can scan that and figure out, if we're doing a matching to sample, which one matches. And then they have to be able to, if we're doing matching to sample, match each comparison stimulus with one sample stimulus. So again, if we take this now outside of the pigeon in the Skinner box, and think for a second about something that might happen with one of our learners, right? Let's say, and let's even stick with matching. Okay, let's say that what we've got is a picture of a truck, right? And then we've got a field of three, and one is an identical picture of a truck. Let's field of two. One is an identical picture of a truck, and one of them is a picture of a car. Okay, simple discrimination. The picture of the truck comes up, and we're always looking for a match. Okay, and so it's always, there's the picture of the truck, it's that one. Picture of the truck, it's that one. Picture of the truck, it's that one. Picture of the car, it's that one. Okay, so now to make this a conditional discrimination, we hold up the picture of the truck and we say, which one's the same? And they match the picture of the truck to the truck. But what if we hold up the picture of the truck and we say, which one is different? Now we've got to choose the car, right? So we've got the initial stimulus is the same, the field is the same, but there's a conditional discrimination in place based on what our verbal behavior was, okay? That determines which is the correct response. So it's a more complex discrimination. So with simple and conditional discrimination, in simple discrimination, one stimulus occasions one response. That's a way of looking at that. Whereas in conditional discrimination, multiple stimuli exert control over a variety of responses. And for each stimulus, one particular response is reinforced. That being said, similar factors can impact the acquisition of both kinds of discrimination. And the things to ensure when we are looking to teach discrimination, whether it's simple or conditional discrimination, does the learner have the attending skills that they need, and are they attending? How salient is our SD, as well as any stimuli that are required for responding, and how similar are those stimuli to other stimuli, right? Because the better someone is able to attend, the more salient the stimuli are, and initially, the more different those stimuli are, the more likely discrimination is to be formed.